All right, let's talk about one of the most exciting, most explosive fields in science right now, AI-driven drug discovery. Because in late 2025, the entire game just completely changed. What used to be a one-horse race suddenly turned into an all-out arms race. So yeah, let's get into it. Everything really kicked off right here, in late October of 2025. You see, for most of the year, Google's AlphaFold 3 was the undisputed king of the hill, no question. But then, get this, in a single 48-hour window, bam, a whole series of powerful new models just dropped, and that monopoly was completely shattered. It was like a Cambrian explosion for AI, and it kicked off the frantic, super competitive race that we're seeing today. And this incredible explosion, it really points to a fundamental shift in the whole field. The goal isn't just about getting the highest score on some public leaderboard anymore. The new goal, you could say the only goal that really matters now, is building tools that have actual, real-world, industrial utility. You know, tools that can actually help us discover new medicines.
So what does utility even look like in this context? Well, it looks a lot like solving this problem right here. It's called free energy perturbation, or FEP. For a long time, it's been the gold standard for figuring out just how tightly a potential drug will stick to its target. The thing is, it's incredibly accurate, but it's also incredibly slow and super expensive. For decades, FEP has been this massive bottleneck, a huge traffic jam in drug design. And that bottleneck is exactly what this new wave of AI models was built to completely demolish.
So, this brings us to the first major faction in this new race, the proprietary vanguard. We're talking about the companies building their models in secret, creating these closed-source tools specifically designed to give them a unique, competitive edge in the hunt for new drugs.
And you have to start with the OG, AlphaFold 3. Now, its monopoly might be over, but it's still the universal benchmark that everyone measures themselves against. It's the model that proved what was even possible. But here's the clever part. By releasing it with a restrictive, non-commercial license, Google basically challenged the world to catch up. They created this power vacuum that all its competitors are now rushing to fill.
And the first big challenger to step into that vacuum is Pearl, from a company called Genesis Molecular AI. Now, Pearl isn't trying to be a do-everything tool like AlphaFold 3. No, it's a specialist. It's laser-focused on what is probably the most commercially valuable problem out there, predicting how small molecule drugs bind to proteins.
So, how does Pearl get its edge? Well, this is where it gets really interesting. First, it uses something called an SO3 equivariant architecture. The simple way to think about this is that the model just inherently understands 3D space. It knows that if you rotate a molecule, it's still the same molecule. It's this deep, intuitive grasp of geometry, something AlphaFold 3 actually took out, that makes its predictions feel more real. But the true secret weapon? That's its training data. Instead of just using the limited public data available, Pearl was trained on enormous amounts of synthetic data that was generated by physics simulations. This lets it learn from a way bigger, way more diverse world of possibilities than what we've actually seen in a lab.
And all of that leads to their really bold claim. They don't just say they're more accurate. They claim they exceed AlphaFold 3 on physical validity. And that's a key phrase. It means their predictions are more likely to be chemically realistic, something a chemist could actually use and trust. And in the world of drug design, that is so much more important than just getting a high score on a test.
And you know, this focus on real-world utility isn't just a Pearl thing. You see it perfectly with other players like Charm Therapeutics with DragonFold and Iambic with Neuroplexer 3. These models weren't built to be show ponies and top the leaderboards. They were built to be workhorses. They're killer apps designed for one specific job, to automatically set up those slow, painful FEP calculations we talked about, basically turning that bottleneck into a superhighway.
Okay, so that's the proprietary world, but it's only half the story. On the other side, you've got this vibrant, messy, and sometimes conflicting open source revolution. This is a global movement aimed at democratizing these amazing tools. But believe me, they are not all on the same team.
The bedrock for this whole community, really, is OpenFold 3. It's a huge effort from a global consortium, and it's the first project to fully replicate AlphaFold 3's amazing performance and then release everything, the code, the weights, the data, under a super permissive Apache 2.0 license. This is so important because it makes it the true baseline that anybody, from an academic lab to a brand new startup, can build on, completely for free.
Then you've got the Boltz Ecosystem from MIT, and wow, these guys are ambitious. This isn't just a single model, it's a whole stack of open source tools designed to snap together like Legos. It starts with Boltz 1. That's your foundation for basic structure prediction.
Then you snap on Boltz 2, and this is where the magic happens. It adds affinity prediction that they claim is nearly as good as FEP, but runs 1,000 times faster. And the final piece on top is BoltzGen, which uses all that knowledge to design completely new molecules from scratch. It's the whole shebang, a complete end-to-end drug discovery pipeline that's open to everyone.
Okay, let's just pull back and look at the scorecard for a second. It's a busy field. On the proprietary side, you've got AlphaFold 3 as the benchmark, Pearl as the performance specialist, and DragonFold as the utility player. And then on the open source side, you've got OpenFold 3 as that true open baseline, the Boltz series as the complete integrated toolkit, and then other really important academic projects like RosettaFold, though their mixed licenses can be a bit of a bummer for industrial use.
So, with all these incredible models out there, proprietary and open, what's the real secret sauce? What's going to determine who actually wins this race? Well, it's not the model architecture itself. It's this idea called the grand convergence, this incredibly powerful symbiotic feedback loop between AI and physics. This is what creates the real sustainable competitive advantage, or moat. Think of this loop as the engine of modern drug discovery. It works in 3 stages. First, AI sets up physics. Models like DragonFold automate those FEP calculations, making them scalable. Second, AI gets a little bolder and starts to challenge physics. Models like Boltz 2 are trying to replace FEP entirely for certain jobs. And then, the third and most crucial step, physics turns around and improves AI. We use these simulations to generate those massive synthetic datasets, the very fuel that powers next-gen models like Pearl. This virtuous cycle, this is the real engine of innovation. So if the grand convergence is the engine, then what's the fuel? It's simple. Data. The basic models are starting to become commoditized, right? Everyone's catching up. So the new arms race, the new battleground, is all about who can generate or get their hands on the best data to feed that engine and train the next generation of AI.
And when it comes to winning this data war, there are really 3 main strategies, which you could call the data generation triad. You can create it from scratch if you have enough computing power. You can essentially buy access to it by pooling data with partners in really clever ways. Or you can build it by contributing to huge public data sets that help the whole community. Let's take a quick look at each.
The create strategy is where things get really wild. This is what Pearl pioneered. Their work gave us the first real evidence of scaling laws in this field. What that means, we now have a predictable recipe. The more compute you throw at generating physics-based synthetic data, the better your AI model gets. This is a total game changer because it reframes data scarcity. It's not a collection problem anymore, it's a computing problem. And that's a problem we're really good at solving.
Now, the buy strategy is all about smart collaboration. The partnership between Aferis and OpenFold proved you can use a cool technique called federated learning. This lets competing companies, say big pharma rivals, pool their super-sensitive proprietary data to train one much better model. And here's the kicker, without that data ever leaving their own secure firewalls. It's a way to collaborate and get stronger together without giving away the crown jewels. Pretty clever, right?
Okay, so even with all of this mind-blowing progress, we are not at the finish line, not even close. There are still several fundamental, really hard scientific hurdles to get over. And whoever solves these grand challenges first, well, that's what's going to separate the winners of today from the true champions of 2026.
First up is the generalization problem. A really important study showed that a lot of these models are kind of stuck in a memorization trap. They're like students who are just amazing at cramming for a test. They can remember all the answers they've seen before, but if you throw them a curveball, a truly new drug target they've never encountered, they struggle. The next big leap is building models that can truly reason, not just memorize.
Next, we have the chemistry awareness problem. Look, a model is completely useless if it generates predictions that just violate the basic laws of physics, like atoms trying to occupy the same space. That's just fantasy. Real chemists need to be able to trust the output. And a huge glaring hole here is water. Water is everywhere in our bodies. It's absolutely critical for how drugs bind, and most of today's models just kind of ignore it. That has to change.
And finally, there's the dynamics problem. We have to remember that proteins aren't rigid little statues. They're constantly in motion, wiggling, breathing, changing shape. Right now, our models give us a beautiful, high-resolution photograph. But that's all it is, a photo. In reality, proteins are a movie. And until we can build models that can capture that entire dynamic dance, we're still missing a huge piece of the puzzle.
So, this all leads us to the final central question that hangs over this entire field. As this incredible technology keeps getting better, who's actually going to win the race to discover the medicines of our future? Will it be the secret labs building private, competitive moats with their proprietary data and hidden models? Or will it be the open alliances working together to build a shared, public platform that benefits everyone? The answer to that, well, it's going to define the future of medicine itself.